2014, she was diagnosed colorectal CA stage 1. She was advised to have operation, pero she decided not to undergo. Pag 2016, she decided magpa-opera na lang siya. That year pod na operahan siya. Before sa opera, we have radiation muna to i-shrink down ang kanang tumor niya, after which operation after is nag-chemo na siya for almost 1 year. Mga 2017, after sa iyahang cycle sa iyahang chemo, nanasad siya signs of kanang reoccurrence sa tumor. Pag kahibaw niya nga na-reoccur iyang cancer, the surgeon kay ni-advise siya nga magpa-chemo ug balik. Pero sa katong nga tayo manggod kay di siya ganahan magpa-chemo. Kay ang iyang experience manggod for 10 cycles, kay every cycle niya tas tusukan siya, peripheral ang iyang chemo. Yeah, the last 2 cycles niya kay naabot na sa iyang finger ang iyang insertion. So mo to'y murag nakapatagam niya. Pila ka months nilabay, di na siya kalakaw, naara siya sa house, kanang ga-bleeding, way ganang mukaon.
Welcome to Dynamic Living, The Total You, with our episode, Cancer Advancements. Alam po natin mga tagapagpanood that it is a reality. The big C is really there and the numbers will actually testify to the increasing numbers. And so pwede ba may magagawa pa ba tayo dito? O kaya ano pa ang dapat nating gawin upang maiwasan ang the big C in our lives? And so heto naman po tayo. We are here in ARC Hospitals, Allegiant Regional Care, nandito po sa Cebu, sa Mactan. At kami po ay nagagalak at ang ating panauhin ay none other than the Medical Director and a Clinical Oncologist by practice, Dr. Alex Alegrado. Welcome to Dynamic Living, Dr. Alegrado.
Thank you, Dr. Loreche, and thank you for inviting me again. This is my second time here in this episode and show of yours.
Okay, and nung una, when we were discussing about cancer, we were talking about it in generalities.
Right.
But that was around 2-3 years ago.
True.
Now, heto ba, may pagbabago ba ngayon, Doc Alex, regarding those top 3 o kaya naman kung ano yung increasing in terms of maybe for the women, for the men, for children?
So there's a lot of advancements since 3 years that we spoke about it. And in terms of epidemiology, the incidence still states that it's 1 in 3 will have cancer. So the risk is there, it's quite high. And in terms of distribution as to what's the most common form of cancer for men and women, breast cancer still ranks number 1 for women.
Hindi pa rin siya nadidislodge from being
That's
number
true.
1.
So it's still the most common for women, and for men, it still remains to be prostate cancer. However, in terms of treatment, we have better ways of treating all this, which we will discuss in details later on.
Yes, in a little while, no? So, heto ngayon, when you talk about cancer, may tinatawag, Doc Alex, morbidity. Meron tayong tinatawag na mortality. Anong pagkakaiba nito? And lahat ba ng cancer, different types, o lahat sila will go through this?
So not all will be very morbid, and not all will die. So when you talk about morbidity, it's essentially the complications brought about by the cancer per se to the patient. For example, there's a breast cancer, right? And then it's spread to the brain. So sometimes the patients will have changes in sensorium, medyo they have loss of consciousness and all, but these are brought about by the cancer per se. So that's the morbidity behind it. Mortality is essentially death caused by cancer.
Do people really die from cancer, or is it the death due to the complications and from something else?
So not necessarily from the cancer per se. So essentially, cancer is preventable. So if you have an early stage form of cancer, you can treat it, and some forms are actually curable. The only thing there is that sometimes it comes to our attention at a late stage, or sometimes there's this fear that people tend to come to us on a later stage rather than early stage. So
do you get to see a difference? I know that you practiced in Singapore, you finished everything there, and even in the United States. If you are going to compare the cases that you get to see from abroad and from here in your actual practice in the Philippines, would you say there's a difference by which people embrace, the knowledge na, I have to see a doctor because I'm not feeling well. I feel that there's a lump in my breast, kailangan akong pumunta sa doktor? Or do you see na pare-pareho lang wherever you are, whether you're in a developing country, a highly urbanized one, or to a country like the Philippines?
So there's a different mindset actually, because most of the Singaporean patients or international patients that I have in Singapore per se, they actually tend to come see me at an early stage. They're mostly conscious about screening, they're mostly conscious about health, essentially. There are a lot of factors maybe why Filipinos tend to come to see us at a late stage. One of the factors that I really observed was the access to care. I think people, they don't have that free access to healthcare, and that's what we're trying to do now here in Cebu, whereby we try to give them this access for screening, for example, or merely just to talk to the doctor for prevention. Yeah.
So yun yung nakikita mo, number one, the difference
yes,
there.
So,
kasi mapapansin natin, mindsetting, pareho lang naman lahat yan eh.
Correct.
You have this fear always. But then if they have that access, they are funded by the government, and they have the best there is in that area.
Exactly.
So that will really matter. So you are now here in the Philippines in actual reality.
Yes.
So does it frustrate you? Does it, make you think, now how come we cannot do what we are doing, in other countries?
So for me, things can be done. Everything is doable if we have that structure here in the Philippines. The only thing is we need to train people. For example, onco nurses, we have shortage of onco nurses. Also in terms of knowledge as to how some of the innovations are being administered, like home chemotherapy infusion. There's really a big difference. Let me just share a bit about home chemotherapy infusion. In fact, we are the hospital that actually is pioneering home chemotherapy infusion, and we have been teaching our fellow colleagues as to how this is done. So it's like you're starting from the beginning, and then if you're in Singapore, everything is already done. So everything is structured. So that's the major difference in terms of the practice here and in Singapore. But for me, I'm a very positive person that things will be better, and with the government support, with the private sector support, and the support groups, I think we can do what Singapore has to offer also here in the Philippines.
Yes, yun yung mahalaga na you come here, you are trying now to, how do I put it, try to put into practice what you have learned so that our kababayans can actually benefit from it. So let's talk about the WHO came up with the statistics that says that in September 2018, Asia has 48.4% in terms of cancer. So, bakit kaya Asia? And if you are going to break it down, where is the Philippines in that map in terms of cancer?
So, unfortunately, we have a paucity of data in the Philippines in terms of reporting the number of cases with cancer. That's because we don't have a central repository. We don't actually report all the cases that we have. But for me, I believe that we are still in the top 3, I should say, or even top 2 in terms of cancer because of our lifestyle. So Filipinos, we love to eat. So and we have different exposure also. So for me, I think we are still in the maybe top 3 maybe in terms of the cancer incidence in
That's the
Asia.
reason for Asia. No?
For Asia.
Or maybe also we are in that area now because of better reporting or maybe awareness.
Yes, so increasing awareness, better technology, and we have people coming in. I mean, they are back to the experts that are back in the Philippines to actually cater to this.
Let's talk about detection.
Right.
Kasi sabi mo kanina, it's a matter really of having that early detection, so to speak,
Correct.
so that we can decrease the incidence of cancer. Now, when you talk about detection, Dr. Alex, are you talking about certain modalities that should be made available to our kababayans?
Right. So we started with mindset. Once we inculcate in that in the minds of the patients that they need to have a good lifestyle or health, then we go to detection. So there's what we call primary prevention, meaning to say modalities that we give to prevent cancer from occurring. Secondary prevention is detection, early detection. So in terms of technology, there's a new technology that we have and we are offering here whereby we do risk profiling of patients. So we all know that essentially 30% is due to
genetics.
Hereditary cancers or genetic predisposition, and then 70% is lifetime. Just imagine we are able to detect your predisposition through a blood test or even saliva. And let's say, for example, if you have BRCA mutation, then you know that you have a 70% risk of developing breast cancer. MLH1, you have like almost 90% chance of developing colon cancer. So,
but how is the response rate of your patients now when you discuss about risk, profiling?
Yes.
So, is it something that they embrace, or is it something that ayoko, natatakot akong malaman ko na magkakaroon ako ng cancer?
So I do get that reaction as well, whereby there's some form of fear. However, I think nowadays the generation, they're very open into like knowing their life. I mean, in terms of health status in life. I usually start with the patient, and then I do a family conference, and I do pedigree analysis in the family. If they are at high risk, then I move on to discussing about risk profiling. And nowadays they are really open about it. Yeah.
So that means it has to be present in one of the family members.
Correct.
So that you would be able to do risk profiling. But for those who never had any history in the family, meron nga kayang pamilya na walang risk for cancer? Let me ask you.
So 30%. So 30% chance of having familial disposition. So that's true to all.
True to all.
Yes. So
once you have that risk profiling, so pag-usapan natin yung risk profiling mo.
Right.
So pagka kunyari, nakita mo heto yung kanyang risk,
yes.
What then is the next step? Knowing na, for example, the patient doesn't have any symptoms at all.
Correct.
The patient is, so to speak, in good health and does not feel anything. And yet will reveal that the patient has a particular risk for a particular cancer.
Right.
What is the next move?
So I do genetic counseling prior and post because there's a certain implication in terms of knowing your profile or your risk profile. And so let's go specific. For example, if you have BRCA1 mutation, you know for a fact that you have 80% chance of getting breast cancer and 40% chance of getting ovarian cancer. So we do have what we call risk reduction strategies, whereby you don't get the cancer once you know that you have the predisposition. So
that's good news, Doc Alex. If you are going to do risk reduction, so what are these strategies?
So for example, if you are BRCA1 positive patient, then I can talk to you about mastectomy, for example, or removal of the ovaries. It really depends on the stage of where the patient is, for example. So if they have completed their family or they're still waiting to complete their family. So it is a process. And we involve genetic counselors, we involve the surgical oncologists to actually talk to the patient. And then
including psychologists siguro.
Correct.
Kasi
So social worker, and then
Uh-huh.
psychologists too. So that these patients will be guided as to what's the evidence and whether it's
What about
indicated.
kung mga bata, like children whose parents are really prone to having cancer or who
Right.
has the big C and they're still children, do you recommend risk profiling for anong edad ng bata dapat siya pwede maisali dyan?
So a lot of patients actually ask me, like, especially my patients who are like, they have the onset of cancer at a young age. And I always tell them that the child should be able to decide or should have that mental capacity to make that decision, because it's a long-term implication for the patient or the child. I only handle adult oncology patients, so for me, I always say the youngest that I've screened, and in all honesty, is an 18-year-old female, and that entails a lot of ethical questions, that entails a lot of psychological support, social support, because the child has to decide as well as the parents at that point in time. So it's a shared decision and informed consent.
And it's going to be very, very traumatic in terms of emotional, maturity on the child, especially kung hindi niya naintindihan yun, ano?
Yes.
Yes. But then how do you lessen the impact of fear on the part of patients when they ask you, Doc Alex, I want a risk profiling, I want to know, but then, I have this fear.
Yeah. So part of it, I always tell them that it's important to know. I mean, knowledge is power, meaning to say you can do something to improve your lifestyle, for example, or to change your habits, the bad habits that you have. So knowing all these things will really help you prevent it from getting
So how much does it cost? I mean, if we are going to tell our viewers the rough estimate, at least they would know na if I'm going to go through this test, this is how much I'm going to prepare. What would be the preparation? What are the samples? And how long will it take for them to be able to have the results?
So you can actually submit your saliva for DNA extraction or your blood sample. And the turnaround time is usually a month or 4 weeks before you get the results. So like what I said, there's going to be a pre-counseling, pre-test counseling, and then after that, when everything is set, then we do the blood extraction or the saliva submission, then wait for 4 weeks, then after that, then we do another post-test counseling and discussion as to what are the implications and the results.
For those who have already the cancer, Doc Alex, can they also go through this, the risk evaluation or profiling? Yes.
So,
we'll answer that when we return. We'll take a very short break, and when we return, we'll continue on discussing with our guest here a very, very important topic and interesting one on cancer advancements. Please stay tuned to Hope Channel.
So after pila ka months, na ami neighbor nga family friends akong father nangumusta sa iyaha kay wala naman kakita na siya sa house. So ang iyahang brother, akong brother niingon sa iyaha nga why not try daw there is a Lapu-Lapu na ako na hospital nga bag-o, which is mga family friend pud niya siguro si Doc Alex niya. Yun siya nga, try lang daw og pa-consult sa kay basig naapay another way daw ba. So moto nga, we've decided nga dalon siya diri, moto nga nagpa-check up mi ni Doc, gidana mo among tanan nga files, nagpa-kuan mi sa iyaha, consult, and nag-seek mi og another opinion. So moto ni introduce si Doc nga ang iyang advice is chemo gihapon, but in a different way, which is home chemo. So instead nga mo stay mi there og 3 days, for 1 day just like this, after ani kay itaod na ang pump, then we'll go home. Then after 3 days kay mo area mi there para i-remove at least sa balay kay naara siya namo nya, naara yung mga apo, so mas dili bitaw siya ma-board nya, dili laay ang feeling kay lain biya kayo bisag kanang bisan bitaw nga kanang magpa-medical check up lang ka, pero kung naka sa hospital kay feel nimo murag mosamot ka kasakit ingon ana. So mo to didto mi nakahuna nga pwede di ay i-home chemo ang inani. So mo to nga ni na kuan siya nga i-try niya.
Ka Dr. Alex na ako magpa-chemo.
Welcome back to Dynamic Living, the Total You, with our episode Cancer Advancements with our guest here, Dr. Alex Alegrado. So Doc, kanina pinag-usapan natin yung iyong molecular profiling,
Alright.
okay? So heto, isa sa mga tinanong ko sa kanina is, how costly or
Right.
affordable is it? One. Number two, sabi mo, 4 to 6 weeks and the sample is saliva or blood. So
Right.
andito ngayon tayo sa cost eh.
Yeah, so it's an important question. It ranges from 50,000 pesos in terms of profiling to as high as like 80,000 pesos.
That's very affordable if you're going to make ipon there, eh, di ba?
And you only do it once also in your lifetime.
So it's not
because
going
it's a
to be-
risk profiling of your genes, so it's worth it. It's really worth doing it because you know you would know your risks. I mean, in terms of genetic predisposition.
Yes. Now let's go into, so you
Right.
have already that one. So nakita na natin ano ang mga risks mo. So let's talk about treatment of cancer. Nagbago ba ang treatment ng cancer today?
So we were talking previously on those patients without the cancer yet. Like, what if you are diagnosed now with
cancer, yes.
So the trend now is to do molecular profiling. So this time we do check the samples or the tissue samples or the biopsy samples that were done, and we macro dissect it and then isolate the DNA. And then we run a series of tests, PCR-based tests, that will determine which mutation actually occurred in that particular cancer. And once we have determined the driver mutations or the mutation that predominates as the main culprit is as to why the cancer developed, we look into sensitivities as to what treatment will be available.
What you're saying now to our viewers, to simplify things,
Right.
if I have breast cancer for this particular type, another patient has the same cancer of the same type. If you're going to do molecular profiling for both of us, there will be a difference.
Yes, because every individual, they have their own genetic machinery, they have their own book. So it's like, that's your own book. This is another book of another patient with breast cancer. And sometimes the mutation differs by even single amino acid change. And the beauty about doing the molecular profiling is that you'll be able to determine targeted treatment. You will be able to know whether chemotherapy is been right for you from the beginning, hormone treatment, and immunotherapy. So going back to your question again, when we do the profile, we explore all the possible advancement and that's available for treatment of cancer.
So in other words, what you're saying again, Doc Alegrado, is it doesn't mean that if you have this kind of cancer cells that is, circulating in your system, na pwede na lang kahit ano lang igamot. Because remember, why I asked this is, we know for a fact that usually, especially from prior years, no, pagka may cancer ka, okay, chemotherapy tayo. O
Right.
kaya naman radiation therapy tayo. O kaya naman operation lang. But then, you are now discussing what would be the better choice in terms of you in the treatment.
Yes. So for example, if you talk about lung cancer, you don't necessarily have to go to chemotherapy right away. So if you have a certain mutation called EGFR and you have like T790 mutation at that, then you think of treatment like osimertinib, which is an oral drug targeted form of treatment. And the difference is that if you give this, the response rate is so high, like up to 70% response rate, and it translates to an overall survival that's tantamount to like years and years of life, compared to the usual 30% from conventional treatment, and survival maybe at best 6 or 8 months at that.
So, dyan mo mapapansin, no? Dyan natin makikita na, kumbaga, if you go through this and you know the better
Yes.
choice, so you give the options to your patients.
Exactly. So the major thing that is different from me in terms of my practice here is I always discuss about molecular profiling. The reason is that I want to determine what is the best treatment or the optimal treatment for the patient. In general, we do have a standard of care across, like in Europe, we have ESMO, we have ASCO, we have in Asia also. We follow a certain standard of care. However, if you extend that to a personalized treatment, that means you have a better option actually.
Gusto ko yung sinabi mong personalized treatment to the patient. In other words, you are now treating this particular patient according to his needs.
Exactly.
Hindi yung kumbaga lump sum lang siya kasi heto yung
Yes.
package siya.
Yeah.
So let's talk about targeted therapies. Treatment. So what do you mean by targeted? And is this something that should be done for most of the cancers that can occur?
So not all patients will have a targetable mutation, so thereby no targeted drug available for them. So that's why we also test whether conventional chemo will be better option for them or not. So targeted treatment is essentially a drug that you give that specifically zeroes into a particular mutation or driver mutation of a particular cancer. Conventional chemo, you kill everything in cell cycle. However, this one is only specific to those with expression of that particular mutation.
And what are in your practice, where you have been doing targeted therapies, what is the success story? Like, for example, if I am a lung cancer stage 2 or a stage 4, success stories here. Now, if you are going to compare it with regular chemotherapy, masasabi mo na, heto mas mataas ang quality of life, ang survival nito.
Yeah, so if you remember correctly, we had a patient who presented with a pleural effusion here, and when we biopsy and sent this for cytology, it was positive for adenocarcinoma cells. And then we did the lung biopsy, and it showed that this patient has EGFR and T790 mutation. So essentially, we gave osimertinib for this patient, and now he's still surviving.
Yeah.
It's been more than 2 years. We just started opening the hospital, and then I think the patient is back now in the US.
In the US,
yes,
yeah. And he's doing very
well. And yeah, until now on the same drug. So that's the beauty of targeted mutation.
Are there complications there, or are the side effects lesser compared to the regular run-of-the-mill chemotherapeutic drugs?
It's manageable compared to your conventional treatment. But then again, I should say that most of the conventional treatment we give already pre-medication, which are also very good, that already prevents the complications or side effects expected from a particular treatment.
So what else aside from targeted that you think today our Filipinos or any patient can actually avail of in terms of treatment for cancer?
So the newest in town is basically immunotherapy. So essentially it's making your own immune cells active so that they can kill the cancer cells. Because supposedly our immune cells should recognize these cancer cells as foreign. However, the cancer cells are smart enough to actually inhibit this immune cells, our natural immune cells. So it's about making them alive again so that they will kill the cancer cells themselves. Yeah.
Success stories for immunotherapy. Is this really, the newest in town? Like, for example, have you given this to your patients?
Yes.
Have they availed of this? And what is their, response to this?
So we have an ongoing patients that are treated with immunotherapy here. So far, the experience is really positive. Side effects wise, very manageable. Some of them, they don't even have any side effects at all. But the most important thing is the gold standard of survival, the overall survival. So if you keep them alive with good quality life, I think it's really worth it pursuing this kind of treatment.
So you have targeted, you have immunotherapy. What else is there in the future, or maybe now, that can be considered as an advancement in terms of treatment of cancers?
So researchers are looking into vaccines, for example. We are also looking at enzymes, or natural organisms in the form of maybe a bacteria or something that they are looking into the clinical trials as of this time. But we have to wait for the advancement of the clinical trials up to phase 3, so that when we have this evidence, then we can actually apply this to our patients.
So let's look back on what you said, that lifestyle is actually accountable or a culprit in terms of development of cancer. So what can we do or encourage our people so that, you know, you minimize? Kasi 30% lang naman ang genetics, 70%
Yes.
pwede mong ma-manipulate yun eh. So what are
That's
the
true.
things that our viewers or our people can understand na these are the things that I need to do in order for me to minimize my developing a big C?
So there are modifiable risk factors that we should say that causes this form of cancer. Food that we eat, that's very important. If we eat a lot of processed food, then we are at risk for developing gastrointestinal or colon cancer, for example. Cervical cancer, HPV, head and neck HPV, there's a vaccine already available. So, I mean, sexual education and protection is very important. Smoking, always number one, smoking. I mean, it causes cancer from the head down all the way to the...
And even passive smokers,
and
no?
passive smoking is also a big culprit in terms of tumor generation. A lot of things like the food that we eat, the water that we drink, so all of these are processed already. Soft drinks.
Which you hate the most.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Now, what are the, in terms of cost and availability of all these treatment modalities, would you say na it may be a little bit costly, but then at the end, it will outweigh the benefit?
Correct.
Number two, it is really available already.
so some of the drugs are available. We do have immunotherapy available in the Philippines. We have targeted drugs available. Some are not FDA approved yet, but we can get access programs through our counterparts in Singapore. So essentially, what Singapore has to offer or the world has to offer, we can access. We just the process is a bit tedious. However, it can be done. So we just have to be patient in terms of getting these drugs imported to us. Yes.
So let's talk about on a personal level about your
Yes.
patients. The number one organ that you get to see in your patients is where?
So
Is it still lungs, or do you get to see a variety of it in your practice here for the past 2-3 years?
yeah, so there's a big difference also because in Singapore we tend to concentrate on a particular field like lung and genitourinary, which is really my special interest. However, in the Philippines,
You do everything.
we have to see everyone as much as you can because of the availability of physicians also. In this particular area or in the hospital, breast is still common, ovarian I've seen, so gynecological cancer, and for men, lung, colon, like there's a few of them also. I do see lymphoma patients also, but I limit to DLBCL. Yeah, and then
You don't want to meddle with other ones?
yeah, I tend to give it to the hematologist to have a look. So
So in your very young practice again, Dr. Alegrado, how do you cope up with the stress knowing that you are dealing with patients who may, anytime may go, just like that?
So sometimes it gets tough when you see like how happy they are with good quality of life, and then all of a sudden that there's an end point to it. But however, what I'm trying to do is to screen most of them at an early stage and try to educate people at an early stage that we can do something about it. And with every successful story that you have, it really outweighs everything else in terms of, the negative, that they die, or sometimes they have severe complications, or they reach the point whereby the body has already deteriorated so much, or the cancer has progressed a lot.
Okay, we'll take a very short break, and when we return, we'll continue on with our interesting talk with Dr. Alegrado. Meantime, I would want to start asking him questions on how he is in this new hospital that he is part of. Please stay tuned to Hope Channel. We'll be right back.
Muto siya nga so nauyon man siya so far kay sa balay ra siya, makabuhat gyapon siya sa iyang activities. So wala ra sad siya laing na feel, pero gipunta na nako siya. mas ganahan daw siya karon kaysa sa katong before niya nga kuan. Although same brown food ang tambal na lay-iad, pero maupod kay there are patients man good nga bisag kanang daghan klase nga doktor, nagay patient nga mauyon ka sa usa ka doktor nga bisag unsa pa siya ka maayo, pero if naamang good na siya bagay-bagay ba nga if nauyon ka ana nga butang adto jud ka didto kay mas feel nimo comfortable and safe ka.
Welcome back to Dynamic Living the Total You with our episode Cancer Advancements. So heto po, dito nga tayo with Dr. Alex Aligrado. At ang ating pinag-uusapan ay yung kanyang specialty, which is the closest to his heart. But this time, let's shift a little bit because now we are going to talk to him as a medical director. What are the birthing pains? What are the challenges? And what is his vision for ARC hospitals? So dito tayo magsisimula, Dr. Alex, no?
Yes.
So alam ko na you are very much a part of these ARC hospitals. Can you please give our viewers lang a very simple narrative on why did you choose to come back to the Philippines and why this hospital?
Right. So when we conceptualized this hospital, it was more on a personal level. So it was about taking care of a family member close to us. And the experience was totally different. And in one of our personal talks, we were saying that, you know, Filipinos deserve an exceptional care of treatment. And it's ironic because most of our, you know, our nurses, or even doctors are Filipinos and they excel in their field. And how come we cannot provide the same kind of standard and level here in the Philippines? So we said, let's make it, let's do it. So then this happened. So, and initially the planning was the easy part. The planning was easy, but the operations and management was the most challenging part of running the hospital.
So now that you have this hospital, and this is a new hospital that opened its doors sometime in October, right?
Right.
Okay, so it is a 100-bed capacity hospital. What are the challenges that you are faced with right now?
So the number one difficulty or roadblock is the availability of manpower. So we already know that the world has opened its doors for our nurses to go abroad and work there. And I think it's, for me, it would be better to serve your co-Filipinos. I mean, I've worked abroad. I mean, the feeling and of satisfaction and fulfillment is different when it's fellow Filipinos that you treat for. Manpower, again, is a difficulty. Doctors, specialists, we need more doctors and specialists. But I think it's spanned across all allied health field. We also need radiation techs, we need med techs, we need pharm techs.
Lahat na lang.
So yeah, there seems to be a need in terms of manpower. So that's a big challenge. And you know, we are very young. Our operations is less than a year, but retention is another challenge. Because like I think it's related to, you know, the opportunities that they get from abroad also. Developing standard operating procedures or modules for the hospital and implementing it. So planning is easy, but the implementation is difficult. Yeah, so it remains a challenge.
But then, despite that, you still opted to be here so that you would be able to spearhead what your vision has been and will always be. And that vision is?
To be the leading provider of an exceptional medical care in the Philippines. And I think the most humble thing about being a physician or a doctor is being able to provide that utmost care for the patient. And just imagine if all the people within this hospital will have that kind of culture and mindset that our priority is to really help the patient.
And that would change totally the mindset of everybody.
Of everyone. So
how would you compare this hospital with other hospitals who are already up there, and here ARC is just at the beginning? Would you say that even with the roadblocks that you have been mentioning, that ARC will have a future and in time it will have its own place?
Yes, so I always say that the hospital is very family oriented or person oriented. So we only not deal with the disease itself, but we take care of the entire well-being of the patient. So specific example would be like their families, and family members and all the members, they come and see us because they feel that they are treated very well, that the care is very exceptional.
Actually, one of the things that stood out for ARC hospitals, it's its capacity to do family conferences.
Correct.
Maybe you can actually expound on that.
Yes, so it's something that I have encouraged all our physicians to do, or even our nurses, that we call all the family members and then we discuss the case, and then we involve them in the treatment or in the management of the patient. So it's very important. It seems to be the well appreciated strategy that we have in terms of patient care. And sometimes we do Skype calls to our patients' daughter or sons abroad, just to have these family conferences. Yeah, so that's something unique.
With the universal healthcare law coming in, how do you think would ARC be in terms of that, of that universal health care?
Right. So we are very active in terms of government participation, involvement with programs that are initiated by the Department of Health or initiated by PhilHealth or any societies in the Philippines. And with the universal healthcare law, I think we will become a very good partner with the government in terms of the provision of this exceptional care. So anything that there's some form of limitation from the government side, we try to augment that and we try to help out in terms of provision of these difficult services or,
So how do you now, if you are given 3 things that you are very proud of ARC hospitals, how would that be, and which areas would you be so proud of your hospital?
Right. So number 1 would be the people behind the hospital. Without these people, this will never be a success. I always say we have been doing very well for a very young hospital. The people really are important. The contribution of our nurses, our auxiliaries, even our janitors that clean the hospital really well. So I think people is important. Second is I think the services that we have, the availability of what we can offer and how we do it. Meaning to say, if we say that we want to do this or we offer this particular test, we have experts that can actually explain and do it. And then, we don't offer something that we are not capable of. So whatever we offer, we have the expertise. So that's important. Third is we have all of us are a visionary. So we have this very big dream that one day we will be able to provide the end-to-end comprehensive care for all patients, and maybe we will have a certain niche in the community in terms of a certain specialty, maybe cancer, for example, or that's really a big dream that we will have.
So how do you envision ARC to be in 5 years or in 10 years or maybe 20 years from today?
So we're looking at a possible expansion in terms of the number of beds that we are capable of doing. And we want to be able to concentrate on our core competencies. So we have ER medicine or accident and emergency, that's number 1. Second is the maternal and child care. So I envision that we should have a separate hospital or like maternal and child hospital for them. Third would be cancer, of course, which is our oncology center. And fourth would be a retirement facility, and fifth would be it's a big dream. Fifth would be allied health school for them.
Well, that's we always say dream big because dreaming is actually free in this world,
Yes.
and you can actually make it happen. So unless you do that, then you will stay where you are. Now, let's talk about you. How do you envision yourself to be? Do you envision yourself to be stuck up here in ARC in Cebu, or do you envision yourself to be at the lead, to be at the height of it, leading the way for your specialty?
So it's more on healthcare management as well as oncology practice also. I still practice abroad, and the reason why I do that is because I want to have this constant learning and getting of new information and insights abroad. So and bringing that here, which I have been doing it now. So again, oncology is still there, healthcare management. So what I've been trying to envision is that there's going to be a good relationship within the government as well as the private institution, whereby we share best practices and we teach each other as to how we can help improve the healthcare services of,
because at the end of the day,
yes.
it will benefit the Filipino people,
Exactly.
right? So thank you so much, Dr. Alegrado, for your time. What is your parting message to our viewers?
So thank you, Dynamic Living, for inviting me again. It's really been a humbling experience from how many years back to now, and what we have achieved.
We will be talking to you again 3-4 years from
Yes,
today,
and then we
to
look back and
see where we are.
So I'll talk with cancer first. Cancer is something that we can do already. Understand and do something about already. And people just have to change their mindset as to how they approach cancer. They should come early for early detection and screening. Then in terms of hospital care, I know that most of the Filipino people are scared to even step forth in
Inside the
a hospital
hospital.
because they're scared that of possibility of morbidity or mortality. But my message to all is that we are here really to be your partner and take care of you, in the best way possible, and we give you that exceptional care also.
Okay. So, thank you so much, and dear viewers, heto po ang aking parting shot sa inyo. Tandaan po natin, life is wealth, di po ba? Quality living is what we look forward to. And at the end of the day, it's not just about yourself, but of the community, of the people that you are going to help. And that is what ARC is standing for, to be able to contribute to the community and make sure that availability of services, expertise can be given to the patient exceptionally. The Filipinos deserve something better, for them to be able to hang on to something that they can actually, give to their children as well. And even the greatest physician, the greatest healer, which is Jesus Christ, has exemplified that. So, tandaan po natin, there is always life after the big C. Magandang araw po sa atin.
Dynamic living, making the best of you on mine. Dynamic living, sharing the faith, we're giving the love and bringing the total you.
Okay, tama-tama si Deb. Pag sinabi ba natin
If you have been blessed by this program, share hope and help us continue to bring hope everywhere. Send your donations to South Philippine Union Conference through any of the bank details shown here. Hope Channel, sharing love, changing lives.
We are people, and we love to get connected. We connect as families because of birth. We connect as friends because we click. And we connect as communities because we care. Seventh-day Adventists are people who connect in communities called congregations, which in turn connect to form conferences, who connect together to form unions, divisions, and the General Conference. Why do we connect? It starts with a connection to the Creator, who invites us on a spiritual journey. When we journey together, we can help each other along the way. This journey is a journey of a lifetime, and as we learn and grow, life becomes filled with meaning and purpose. Our greatest joy is in helping others along the way. Wherever you are on your journey, we believe that we have something to offer that can make your life more whole. So the next time you see a Seventh-day Adventist, remember, you're not looking at someone who stands alone. They are connected to a world church that has 18 million members, gathered in 13 divisions, comprised of 122 unions, formed by 600 conferences, serving in 140,000 congregations in 208 countries, who worship in 924 languages, and they all want to connect with you.
Meet the Hanson clan. Like any typical family, they have their issues. George, the father of Jennifer and Sebastian, is an atheist. His wife Suzanne is into the New Age. Suzanne's sister Mary is a born-again Christian married to Tom. Tom's mother recently died in a car accident. When Rosalind died, Tom really wanted to know what happened to his mum after death. His friends and family had many different views on the subject. George said, "Death is just the last step in our evolutionary process. When you're dead, that's all. Enjoy life today, it's all you've got." Suzanne told Tom, "This is just a new beginning for your mother. Now her soul is set free and she can come back again, perhaps as a cow or human, in the never-ending circle of life. No one ever really dies." Tom didn't like that idea too much since he's not a vegetarian. The idea that he might be eating someone's relative or even his mum someday didn't sound right to him. Tom's wife Mary said, "My dear husband, I know you must be sad, but your mother is now in heaven watching over you." At first that sounded real good to Tom, but then he wondered how much he liked the idea of his mother watching his every move now that she was in heaven. It was bad enough when he was a child. Tom's ever-so-sarcastic co-worker said, "Perhaps she went to purgatory or the flames of hell. Was she a good Christian?" As Tom thought about these conflicting views, he felt an overwhelming desire to know the truth. How could he know for certain what happens once you die? The apparent darkness beyond the grave troubled him a lot. He thought, if I die, then what? I like my life, and the idea that I might cease to exist forever is rather a terrifying thought. So Tom set out on a journey to discover the truth about death. He scoured the internet looking for answers, read articles and watched videos on the subject, but the more he read and the more he heard about death, the more confused he became. Perhaps like Tom, you've wanted to know what really happens after death. Unfortunately, you can't pick the after-death version you most prefer. Going up, going down, coming back around, or staying in the ground forever. You can choose to believe what you want, but that doesn't make it true. There aren't many truths on the subject, just one. Since we believe the Bible is God's word to us, we're going to discount the staying in the ground forever and coming back around ideas. The Bible doesn't support those theories. The secret to solving the mystery of death is found in the truth about the soul. Are you a soul, or do you have a soul? If you are a living soul, there is nothing that leaves your body when you die. The truth about death is important to understand because if you have a soul, separate and distinct from the body, the door is thrown wide open to the world of spiritualism. The Bible says God only has immortality. If the soul never dies, it must be immortal, but that idea is not found in the Bible either. At the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, Satan said, "You shall not surely die." Thus, the first lie about man possessing immortality was told to Eve. But God said, if you eat the fruit of the tree, you will die. Who was right, Satan or God? Adam and Eve and every human being since have fallen under the hand of death. Everyone eventually dies. No one will argue that fact, but what then? A correct view of the soul is found in the book of Genesis. It says, "The Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Notice the word became. Man became a living soul. It took the body and the breath of life to make a living soul. The word soul in Hebrew means being or creature. With the breath of life, man became a living creature or living being or living soul. Now the question then follows, did Adam have a creature or did he become a creature? Did he have a being or did he become a being? Did he have a soul or did he become a living soul? A simple reading of the text makes it clear he became a living soul. He did not have a soul distinct and separate from the body. Take away the breath of life, and man is no longer a living soul. Simple. All that is left is the body without the breath of life. Now he is a dead soul, a dead creature, or a dead being. According to the Bible, the word breath and spirit have the same meaning. When the Bible says, the breath returns to God who gave it, it is the same as saying, the spirit returns to God who gave it. Some Christians believe the spirit is separate from the body, that when a person dies, his spirit goes to heaven as a conscious entity. But is this true? Note what Solomon said. The living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Their love, their hate, and their jealousy have long since vanished. Never again will they have a part in anything that happens under the sun. Tom's mother didn't go to heaven the day she died, which means he can breathe a sigh of relief. She won't be watching over his every move. The breath of life returned to God who gave it, and her body returned to the dust of the earth. God said, "Dust you are, and to dust you shall return." God banished Adam and Eve from the tree of life so that man would not live forever. It makes no sense then to say that when they died, they would live forever, either in the flames of hell or go directly to heaven as a spirit. The prophet Ezekiel said, "The soul that sins it shall die." And David said, "When a man dies, in that very day his thoughts perish." Jesus and many other Bible writers compared death to a sleep. When his friend Lazarus had been dead for 4 days, Jesus said, "He is asleep." His disciples didn't understand, so Jesus said plainly, "Lazarus is dead." When people die, they sleep in the grave until the resurrection. When you go to bed at night and wake up in the morning, 8 hours seems just like a moment in time. So it will be with the sleep of death. But what about people who say their loved ones came to them in the night and told them about heaven? Once you understand this simple truth about death, it becomes apparent that all spiritual manifestations of people who have died are illusions. Evil spirits posing as deceased friends and family who really are still in the grave. It's not difficult for evil spirits to appear as someone from the past. It happened to King Saul when he went to the witch at Endor and an evil spirit impersonated the prophet Samuel. The truth about death exposes the lies of Satan and reveals the many ways he has deceived people on earth. Paul wrote to Timothy, "The Spirit clearly says that in later times some will abandon the faith and follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons." Tom finally discovered the truth about death. It's just a sleep until the resurrection. He doesn't go up, down, or come back around, and he doesn't have to worry about his mum watching over his every move or eating a distant relative someday. Best of all, because of Jesus, he won't pass into oblivion. He can have life after death, eternal life. And that, my friend, is the truth about death.
Sometimes trials are like big waves. They knock you down. Sometimes you get a chance to get up. And sometimes, oops, don't worry, you'll be alright.